Okay, so Parshas Pekudei is the siyum on Sefer Shmos. And on one hand, like we always mention, it seems out of all the Parshas of the Mishkan, perhaps the least exciting, right? Because we've seen it all. We've seen it. And now it goes through the list. This is what they collected. This is what they put together. This is what they brought. But again, as we said, the Ramban said, it's all leading up to that finale, which was the hope.
Missing, though.
Yeah.
Moshe never said how much gold they collected.
The gold it never listed the cheshbon. Interesting. Yeah. You heard an explanation for it? Why not gold?
Yeah, I did. Because it wasn't finished yet. They didn't finish. He gave it. It was an interim report. It wasn't.
But they were still going to do more.
They didn't finish all the kalim, the gold yet.
Okay, because they put the Mishkan first and then the kalim. Interesting. So we're going to be seeing a lot about the order of how things were done also. But the ikar is that the Shekhinah came into the Mishkan. That means that the purpose of Yitzias Mitzrayim was fulfilled. As the Ramban said, it was to go and to receive the Torah, but then that Am Yisrael should have a Shachanti V'sochim, the Mishkan dwelling among them. Then that was fulfilled, and that was despite Chet HaEgel. Right? According to some Mefarshim, actually, it was a whole different world after Chet HaEgel. There wouldn't have been a physical Mishkan without Chet HaEgel. It just would have been that Bilvavi Mishkan Evne, that internal Mishkan. But anyway, we have it. But when you look in the details, you see strange things, and that opens up a world for us. So the Shem MiShmuel points out, it says, Vayokem Moshe es HaMishkan, Vayiten es Adonov, Vayosem es Krosov, Vayifros es ha'ohel. So, good evening, Barry. Let me just grab, a Chumash Mikros Gedolos, without tripping on all the wires here. Okay, so they brought the Mishkan to Moshe, and Moshe actually was the one who put it up. Rashi says that physically no one else was able to put it up. Moshe Rabbeinu supernaturally was able to put it up. But when it gives us the order here of what was done, it says Moshe erected the Mishkan, and then he put the Adonim, which is the sockets, and then the boards, right, which provided, so to speak, the body, the walls of the Mishkan. Now that is strange, because the Mishkan, as we see in a few places till now, refers to the Urios, the curtains. Okay, these curtains were the innermost level. Then you had on top of that the Oros Elim Ma'adomim of the goats, and then you had with the Oros Tchoshim on top of that. But this was the Mishkan. Now, I'm not such a handy guy, and I don't think I've ever put up a tent, but I know it would probably be not a very good thing if I tried to put up a tent. You know, you hear of enough people talking about struggling with, the poles falling down and the thing falling down in the middle of the night. And here Moshe Rabbeinu does something very strange. He puts first the Mishkan.
What holds it up?
What holds it up, right? And why not do it the normal way, where you put up the physical boards that the curtains are going to rest on, and do it that way? Okay, so that is his basic question. It refers us to the Sforno, who already asked this, right? That it says, here comes Moshe Rabbeinu doing this. It says, Vayokem Moshe es HaMishkan. The Sforno says, these are the Eser HaYerios Maaseh Choshev, these 10 curtains that were embroidered in a special way. Shenikru Mishkan, those are called throughout, that is the Mishkan. Hukmu kodem hakamas hakroshim. Somehow he put them up before putting up the boards of the Mishkan, the walls of the Mishkan. I said, im bidei odom machzikim bo. Either they had people holding it up, like you see, at Kol Hanarim on Simchas Torah, everybody somehow holding up the talis. I was actually in a Judaic store the other day, and there was this big talis bag. It says on a talis Kol Hanarim. Yeah, that you get special for that once a year use. Or b'derech nes, K'divrei, he says, and Tanchuma says that it stayed up with a derech nes. And he says that was the way it was brought to Moshe, and that is the way it was put up. Okay, he says, and the Eser Yerios are the Ikar Binyan of the Mishkan, these 10 curtains. So the Shem MiShmuel, right, tells us, right, he asks us, why? V'yesh l'hovin. He says, you have to understand, Torach zeh, el neis zeh loma. In other words, either way you look at it, if you had lots of people holding up the curtains and somehow then people are building the boards of the Mishkan underneath, that's a Torach, that's quite a burden. Or nes zeloma. If it was a miracle, so HaKadosh Baruch Hu never does what they call a nes bichdi, a nes for nothing. HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't like doing nisim and breaking the seder of the teva that he created unless it's for a specific purpose to teach us something. He says, mato elesbo. What type of purpose or benefit is there in this? He says, ulama lo hukmu kederach habinyonim. Why not do it the way you usually do with a building? Mitchila kroshim, right? Lios nosim leirios. You have this roof made out of curtains or such. Build the walls, plunk that on. It's fine. Why not? So he explains the following. He says the kavanah of the Mishkan was hashras hashchina, right? That you'll make the Mishkan v'shachanti besocham. So what that means is that the Mishkan and the kelim, they were all what he calls nosim la'or ha'eloki ha'shofea alehem. They were able to, so to speak, absorb and bear in this world a godly light that came down to them. Okay, that is what's happening with the Mishkan. V'shachanti besocham, that Kedusha is actually coming down and entering the physical creation of the Mishkan, right, and being born by those physical creations. Now, he says, this is a hint to tell us about the chesed Hashem did after Chet HaEgel. He says, because lo hayu adayin ru'uyin la'ashras hashchina, meaning you're in kind of a little catch-22. The Mishkan was obviously a tremendous spiritual thing that could help Am Yisrael, right? And that's the whole idea of going up to the Mikdash. The Sefer HaChinuch talks about why we have so many mitzvahs that require Aliyah L'Regel. You have to bring your Meiser Sheni up there. You have to go on your Aliyah Regel. You have to bring your Bikurim. There are many reasons why a person would go, because he said that was transformative to go to the Beis HaMikdash. That would transform a person. So that's why we have a Mishkan. A Mishkan is a place you can go to and daven and bring your korban. It changes you. On the other hand, until you've undergone that transformation, how are you able to build a Mishkan? You just did a Chet HaEgel. Right? So you're stuck. I need the Mishkan to get out of my spiritual rut that I fell into with Chet HaEgel, right? But I can't build a Mishkan because I'm in the spiritual rut. So he says, Hikdim HaKadosh Baruch Hu v'hishra shchinaso aleim ba'odam b'shval ha'matzav. HaKadosh Baruch Hu said, you know what? I'm going to take the first step. I am going to bring my Shekhinah to you, even though you're in still a very low state. Why? This will show you that I believe in you, and this will encourage you and enable you, not just the Mishkan itself, but you, Am Yisrael, to be able to be a vessel to bear this godly light. And he says, not just he says, I don't want you to be satisfied just with the fact that the Shekhinah came to the Mishkan and dwelled there. He says, your ambition should be that each and every one of you should be able to be a small Mishkan. Right? That is what's supposed to happen. That's the real V'shachanti B'socham. B'soch kol echad ve'echad mikem. Inside each and every one of you. Okay, so therefore, he says, this is the symbol of the Yerios going on before, right, the actual building came up. Meaning, the Yerios represent the actual Mishkan, so to speak, represent the actual Shekhinah. Mishkan has in it the same root as Shekhinah, coming to Am Yisrael. Hashem says, you're not ready. Okay, you have nothing to hold up the Yerios, but it's coming now anyway to help you. And then you'll be able to build the rest. Okay, so this is a tremendous example, and he says, not the first time HaKadosh Baruch Hu showed that to us. So too in Mitzrayim, they were Meshukoyim b'memte sharituma. Okay, you got to realize, again, we've mentioned the coloring books may not get it right. In other words, not everybody coming out of Mitzrayim looked like with a shtreimel and beard and payas and everything. because it says at Yamsuf, the Yamsuf said, I can't tell the difference between these Mitzrim and these Jews. These serve Avodah Zarah, these are Megadli Bloris, they have these strange haircuts, whatever it is. So they were in the Memtesh Shari Tuma, that 49th gate of spiritual negativity. And then, boom, they were out of Mitzrayim. Lo hispik b'tzeikam lahachmitz, he said. They were making some dough. Next thing you know, they're out of Mitzrayim. Did they go now up to the 50th gate of Kedusha? No. Right? That's done during Sfas Omer. So how did they come out at that point if they were still in such a low state? So it says that HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted to show them the following. Moshe Rabbeinu had asked early on in the story, with which Sfas will Am Yisrael come out of Mitzrayim? In other words, if they're in this 49th gate of Tumah, in order to benefit and have this miraculous Geula from Mitzrayim, you got to have something in the bank account, and they got nothing. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu told them, when you take them out of Mitzrayim, they're going to do the most significant thing that ever happened in history. They're going to receive the Torah on Har Sinai. They can do that. I'm going to take them out now, even though they're not up to it at all now, because of who they are and what they will be able to do. Okay, so he says that's the same process. That he said that he came and he took us out, right? The ikar of Leil HaSeder is Gilui Shechina. That's what it is, right? Gilui Shechina was what made it all happen. We were not worthy. People in Mentes Shari Tuma don't usually get Gilui Shechina. You don't even get Eliyahu Hanavi Gilui, right? You don't get, but here, right? Ani v'lo malach, ani v'lo sof, anihu, such a Gilui. He says HaKadosh Baruch Hu did that, and that enabled us to become who we had the potential to become. So it's a tremendous expression of the belief in us and the idea that we can reach those levels and who we'll be and who we're going to be able to become. Now, he extends this a little bit, I'll just try to say it in a concise way, to Shabbos also. He says, if Shabbos waited for Am Yisrael to be ready for Shabbos, it would never come. Okay, he says you can never be ready. If we knew what Shabbos is, to be actually worthy, ready to receive Shabbos, it would never come. But what does Shabbos do? Oh, Shalom Aleichem, good to see you. Right? It's Paris, right? It spreads its wings on us. Right? That's what we say. Fros aleinu sukkah shlomecha. We talk about this idea of spreading the wings on Am Yisrael, no matter how they are. And that itself is supposed to strengthen us, right? Enable us to be able to receive Shabbos. The fact that Shabbos comes to us and says, I know that I'm meant for you. And therefore, you can receive Shabbos. So he brings an interesting diuk. In the first luchos, before Am Yisrael did the Chet HaEgel, it talks about, right, Shabbos, but it doesn't say Zeicher Yitzias Mitzrayim. It doesn't say just like in Yitzias Mitzrayim. But in the second luchos, after they did the Chet HaEgel, they said the dynamic of Shabbos is like it was in Mitzrayim, meaning it's there for you no matter what level you're on. Just like Hashem took Am Yisrael out of Mitzrayim, no matter where they were, so too Shabbos comes to you no matter where you are. And because of that, because it knows that every Jew can receive Shabbos and can be there. Okay, so that is the first piece about that strange construction order of the Mishkan. Now let's take a look at a bit of the timing of the building of the Mishkan. The Medrash says that HaKadosh Baruch Hu, right, wanted the Mishkan to be put up in the month that Yitzchak Avinu was born, okay, which is Chodesh Nisan. So he says, Yitzchak was born in Nisan, but Avram was born in Tishrei. Yaakov was born in Tishrei. Why is Yitzchak different? And where do we see this difference between Yitzchak and Avram and Yaakov? Says a Gemara in Shabbos, it tells us the following. It says, Amar Rab Shmuel bar Nachmani, Amar Rab Yonasan, Ma dichsiv ka'ato avinu, ki Avraham lo yodanu, v'Yisrael lo yakirenu, ata Shem avinu go'olenu me'olam shmecha. Right, this pasuk that says, you, Hashem, are our father, because Avraham didn't know us. Yisrael, meaning Yaakov Avinu, didn't recognize us. You, Hashem, are our father, who always redeems us. So what's going on here? La'asid lavo in the future, Yom Allah HaKadosh Baruch Hu Avram. It's going to come a time HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to say to Avram, Bonecha chatu. Listen, your children have been doing averas. Chatuli, they sinned against me. Am lefan Ribbono shel Olam. Yimachu al kedusha shemecha. Let them be erased, right, for the holiness of your name. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu said, right, he said, Emer leili Yaakov. I'm going to try talking to Yaakov instead. Why? Yaakov Avinu had a hard time with his kids. That softens a person up a bit. You know, to not be so judgmental, not to be so tough. Maybe Yaakov is going to pray for mercy from Yisrael. Amar lei, Hashem said to Yaakov Avinu, Bonecha chatuli, your children sinned against me. Amar lefon of Ribbono shel Olam, Yimachu al kedusha shmecha. Let them be wiped out for the kedusha of your name. Amar, Shem says, Lo besabe taima. The old ones don't have tam, don't have reason. V'lo bedarde ke etza. And the young ones don't have good etza, good advice. Amar lo leYitzchak. So he comes to Yitzchak and he says, Bonecha chatu. He goes through the same thing. And now Yitzchak starts to bargain with HaKadosh Baruch Hu in a very interesting way. Right, he says, Ribbono shel Olam, let's talk. How much did they sin? Okay, first of all, how long does a person live? Let's call it 70 years, like David HaMelech said, wishing everyone a happy, healthy 120 at least. But that's there, let's say, as a median. He says, okay, and we know that you don't really punish till after 20. Okay, take that as an axiom. Also, that was in the Midbar. We see only the ones above 20 weren't able to go into Eretz Yisrael. And then he says, of those 50 years left, a large percentage of the time they're sleeping. They're not sinning when they're sleeping. Okay, and, then there's time when they're davening and they're eating. So he says, not that much sinning time left. So why don't we decide, palga alai v'palga alach. We'll split it. You take half of it on you, I'll take half of it on me. And if you say you don't want to take that half, I'll take it all on me because I gave my life al kedusha shemecha at the Akedah, right? So I can take it all. I gave that all there. Okay, so this was the dialogue. So then it says, Am Yisrael wanted to praise Yitzchak and say, Ki ato avinu, right? You are our father, not Avram and Yaakov. Yitzchak said, Ad she'atem mekalsim li, before you praise me, kalsu la'Kadosh Baruch Hu. Praise HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Okay, now this, he says, is very strange. Avram Avinu's midah is chesed. Yaakov Avinu's midah is rachamim. Yitzchak Avinu's midah is din. If there's anybody who's going to say, they sinned, right, punish them, that should be Yitzchak. The ones who are asking for chesed and rachamim should be Avram and Yaakov. But it's the opposite. So he explains in a fascinating way. He says, the Al Shich HaKadosh explains why the Avos were all akorim, meaning it wasn't just that the Emos were unable to have children, the Avos also were infertile. That was their physical status, starting off. They were not able to have children. He says, okay, we'll see, not all of them. Okay, he says, why is it? He says, so that there shouldn't be a connection from the previous generations before them with Am Yisrael. Because here, if Avram Avinu, let's say, was, according to nature, unable to have children, so if HaKadosh Baruch Hu miraculously enabled him to have children, those children are not connected to Terach. Right? The line stopped after Terach, right? Because Avram couldn't have children. HaKadosh Baruch Hu now enabled him miraculously to have children. This is something new. Now, this is what Bilam says, Meirosh Tzurim Me'arenu. I see that the rocks, so to speak, that are the foundation of Am Yisrael, these are the Avos Imahos. Not Terach, and not generations before then. Now, he says, it is a little strange. Terach, though, wasn't barren. Avram Avinu was born naturally from Terach. He says, so why is that? Because Avram Avinu did something very special. Avram Avinu discovered HaKadosh Baruch Hu on his own, different years that are given in Chazal, 3 to 42. And therefore, at the beginning, he was a child of Terach. He was part of that world, of that negative world. But he himself turned chashocha to nahara. He transformed darkness to light. That was the greatness of Avram Avinu. But Yitzchak That's what we refer to in the Bris Milah. Asher kidesh yidid mi beten. He says Yitzchak Avinu was born already in that miraculous way. The change, he was a chiddush. He was a chiddush. Avraham naturally was not supposed to have any children. Yitzchak was a chiddush. He was not the Toldos of Terach. And then when Yitzchak had Yaakov and Yaakov had children, that was that continuation of that line of Am Yisrael without a connection to Terach and all that came before. Okay, so he says, therefore, Yitzchak's birthday is in Nisan. Nisan is prepared already beforehand as the month of Geula, right? That's the Beis Halevi explains the answer to the Rasha and the Haggadah. The Rasha says, Ma Avodas zos lachem, right? It's interesting. There are old Girsos of the Haggadah that says, Ma hatircha zos lachem. I think that might be in the Yerushalmi. It brings the question, what is this burden, this bother, right? Because somebody's dough didn't rise a few thousand years ago. We got to go crazy cleaning the house and eating these crackers and all these things. And the answer is, Bavur zeh asa Shem li b'tzeisim miMitzrayim. He says, you think we got these mitzvahs because of something that happened during Yetzias Mitzrayim. Hashem choreographed Yetzias Mitzrayim to bring these mitzvahs into the world. Okay, so he says, that's the idea of Nisan. Nisan was the time for the rebirth of Am Yisrael. Am Yisrael Achidush. There's something new. All the descriptions of Am Yisrael leaving Mitzrayim are like being born. Okay? We say in the Haggadah, like childbirth, where there's blood and all these things. Okay, so therefore he says, that's fitting for them. So now he says, the argument that went on in Masechah Shabbos. Avram and Yaakov weren't saying destroy Am Yisrael. They were saying destroy the people who sinned, and then there will be a Kiddush Hashem because that will make a huge impact on the other people. And then they will change, and they'll do tshuva, and Am Yisrael will be able to go on. So Yitzchak took a different track. Yitzchak, because his midah was one of chiddush, of renewal, he says no. He says even if the people who did sin, even the Rishonim, they don't have to be destroyed. He says because Am Yisrael can renew. They can always be mischadesh. So even if they went down into the deepest, darkest places, into the worst and filthiest things, they will renew. And he says you have to view every Jew, if he looks bad on the outside, take a look at a tree during the winter. A lot of times it lost its leaves, or those leaves are all dead, and it looks there, he says, but, he says, in the springtime, right, and that's the linchpin of the Jewish calendar, that Pesach has to come out in Chodesh Aviv. That's why we make leap years, so the Pesach will be in the springtime. He says they'll come alive again, okay? Everyone, no matter what's been. This was what Yitzchak was able to do, and he says that is exactly what the Mishkan is about. Chazal say, he brings down from the Tanchuma and other places, that the Mishkan is actually an idea of a new creation, right? It's something that didn't exist before. It's a new level of what came into the world, and it was a chiddush because human beings built it, and it became ruchnius. Okay, his father, the Avnei Nezer, says, we're used to the idea that things that start off in ruchnius, everything starts off as spiritual shefa as it comes into the physical world, takes on a physical form. He said here was the opposite. They built something physical and it became something spiritual to the extent that the Aron Kodesh even carried those who carried it. Okay, so he says, therefore, all of this is a message to Am Yisrael, who fell after Chet HaEgel Shelo Yomru Noash. They shouldn't despair, because with the Koach HaChidush that Am Yisrael has, they can always start fresh, always start new. And they have that fire inside of them. And he says this is particularly a Yerusha from Yitzchak Avinu. That's why the Mishkan was designed to be built in Chodesh Nisan, the month that Yitzchak was born. But he finishes with a little bit of homework. He says, Mizeh limud la'adam. This teaches us. Sheyovin v'yaskil b'daitum ma shechodesh Nisan mevakesh mimenu. Chodesh Nisan doesn't just happen to be the month in which Pesach's coming. He says the month of Nisan has inherent power and it demands something of you. Be new, be fresh in your thoughts, in your words, in your deeds, as if everything's being recreated again. And know The things you did wrong in the past are not going to be remembered. Lo tala alev, don't even think about them. That's the idea of the chidush which is here. Okay, so he says this is the power of the Mishkan, of Chodesh Nisan, of Yitzchak Avinu, and that's what we have coming up with the Parshas HaChodesh. That's why that power of chidush, HaChodesh Hazeh Lachem, Rosh Chodoshim, Rishonu Lachem L'Chodshi Hashana, this is unique to Am Yisrael. I'll just finish with one strange bit of kind of trivia. That Hitler Yamach Shemo, right, among his insanities, I read this book, it was about the last part of World War II. It said that he had something called lunophobia. He was afraid of the moon. Okay, now if you think about what the moon represents to us, that can make a lot of sense. He is this incarnation of Amalek wanting to wipe out Am Yisrael. Am Yisrael are sidin lischadesh kamosa. Every time you see the moon disappear, it comes back. It gets smaller and smaller. You think it's gone, and it comes back a little and more in full. It can be very understood why he had that phobia, because that's his fear of us. But we have to realize that that's us, asidim l'ischadesh kamosa, that we can and we will always renew. May everyone have a Chag Kosher, a Sameach, a good Shabbos, etc.